Good evening and welcome to the latest edition of Radio Pitch and Putt, COVID Pitch and Putt with Frank Deneen, your host. This evening I am privileged again to be joined by one of the icons of the game. National stroke play, national match play, 4 Leinster match plays, 3 in a row, 2 Leinster stroke plays and 2 Dublin stroke plays as well. One of the true icons of the game in the modern era. Perhaps one of the players that would be described as being universally liked. If there was a popularity contest in the morning, I wouldn't come anywhere, but this guy would surely be number one. JR Crangle, it's a pleasure to meet you.
How are you doing, Frank? Thanks very much for the introduction. I wasn't expecting that now.
Well, we have to.
Thanks.
We have to do what we can.
It's great to be here.
Absolutely. I hope you and your family and everybody is safe in these challenging times. I know you work in retail and you are the unsung heroes as well as you try to keep the world alive and fed.
Look, we're all good up here. I wouldn't see retail as a frontline sort of thing. I think the nurses and the doctors and all are the real heroes. So look, we're just doing our job and that's it, So look, hopefully in the near future we get back to normality if there is such a thing anymore.
Well, maybe there's going to be a new version of normal. JR, we're going to concentrate a little bit on pitch and putt for a while. We might delve into other topics as we go through this short, challenging few words. But tell me about your early career. When did you start playing? Where? How did it come about?
It was in the summer of 1995. I had a friend that lived around the corner called Colin Ward. He was actually second in the Inter All Ireland in RJC. I think it was 2007. I might have been 2012. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was down in Loughlinstown Pitch and Putt Club. He came around and asked, did I want to go down one day? I was only 10 years of age, so there was a group who sort of went down. There was about 10 or 11 from around the area, and we all went down. I went down, and even though I was a big advocate for only 2 clubs of pitch and putt, I went down with 3 clubs that day.
Yeah.
a 5 iron, a 9 iron, and a putter.
Very
and
good.
I was hooked straight away. We went down nearly every day of the summer. We had a great juvenile section down there at the time under Shay Cox. He looked after us very well. There must have been at least 50, maybe 60 young lads there at the time in the mid-90s up to the early thousands.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, it was terrible. I was absolutely brutal. I think I got a handicap at 24 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think we went up to 24. That was it. We had our own in-house sort of handicaps for the juveniles, at the time.
Yes.
And it was absolutely brutal. And it took about 3 years just constantly playing and gradually got better. But by the time I left juveniles, I was half decent,
Were you on Dublin intercounty teams or anything like that?
No, I wasn't. I taught me last year when I was 15. I thought I was good enough to play on the team that year, but they seen otherwise. I was just short of, because we used to have a lot of opens in Dublin, and I think there was 6 at the time, and I won prizes in more or less every one of them, So
yeah.
But I don't know, the way things were back then, and probably like early 2000s for Dublin, it was a lot of picking players that were popular and stuff like that, So, not saying that they didn't have ability, yourself. But
yeah. Well, it's amazing actually when you look back on players who did get to the very, very top, the likes of Ray Murphy, Darren Collins, John Walsh, yourself, John O'Leary was talking about it, myself even. We were all probably poor juveniles to be generous to us. We didn't excel. We weren't inter-county stars. It's an unusual thing, but we certainly had a grow for the game, and all of the players that I mentioned, excuse myself, of course, went on to be greats at the game. So did you practice a lot when you got into the adult ranks? What handicap did you come out with?
I got a 4 handicap. I was in the intergrade. That was in 2001. And I played for a few weeks, I think, and I used to play in a society with my dad in pitch and putt. up in Glencullen in the Dublin Mountains. And I used to enjoy it up there. Like, it was a much better course than Loughnsound was at the time.
Yeah.
Loughnsound's improved a lot since then. You know, we were going through. We were cut to 9 holes. We were at that time, so there was a lot of works going on with new houses being built. So the course was only 9 holes. So I sort of drifted off and played with my dad in the society, for a couple of years. I still went down to Loughnsound and played the odd time with them, but it's very hard when you're juvenile coming into the adults. You know, you sort of you feel lost, if you know what I mean. You have a lot of older people around, and some people don't take the younger people coming through. You know, it's very hard. And I felt that, so I sort of drifted off, and then I came back in 2003 and sort of said, right, I'm going to give this a bit of a go. And luckily enough, the first sort of tournament I won was the Dublin Stroke Plays in Inter in 2003. Then a couple of weeks later, I won the Leinster Stroke Play then in Bellewstown.
Very good.
And sort of went into the seniors then and struggled there for a few years. You know, I done well in some competitions, and I remember being the last 3 ball in RJC when Terry O'Donnell won. He won a crazy playoff with Skinner Malone and Gavin Carty. I think they were, for 9 holes, I think the two of them were 7 under, and Skinner got knocked out, Gavin Carty got knocked out. He was 6 under for the 9 holes, you know, and Terry birdied the last to win. So it was when you see that and you're sort of saying, right, that's the level I have to try and hit, you know. So took a few years, but in 2009 I sort of made the breakthrough, I think.
Very good. Was there a tournament that you attended or saw or got involved in where was that Scratch Cup was the one that made you think I can be good enough here? I think 2008. I played I think the Leinster match play came back in 2008. I played. It was in Area at the time, and I played. Can't remember now who I played the first round. I think it was Noel Comiskey, and I played Liam Sherry, God rest him. Yeah.
And I can't remember who else. I think it might have been Larry McGeehan, and then I got to the semi-finals against Willie Buckley, and I played reasonably well. I was stuck with him for 18 holes, and he took charge. I always remember there was a guy standing behind one of the tee box, and Willie took off his top. He said, "Oh, he's getting serious now," and that worked me, and I was gone. So he ended up beating me 4-3, and I think he beat Sean Downs then in the final 10-9 or something like that, something crazy. Or it might have been the other way around. I'm not sure if Sean. I think it might have been actually Sean that done the Willie. So when I got that far, I got a lot of belief, you know.
Yes. Do you practice a lot, or did you practice a lot to get to the level that you needed to?
I did. I practiced a lot when I was younger, an awful lot. And I probably don't play as much as I should now because you competitions all the time, you know. Like, we're lucky enough in Dublin, we play our leagues through the summer where we're playing every Wednesday or Tuesday or something like that. Then you have your Scratch Cups at the weekend or qualifiers or something. Trials now as well, like, so you're constantly on the go. So I don't see much time to practice, but I was never one for practicing once I got sort of to the higher level, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
And if you do you practice with any intent or any purpose, or what's your methodology?
Yeah, well, if I was to practice myself, I'd always, every year, I'd go up in probably January, February, early in the year, just with my putter and 3 or 4 balls, and just stay on one of the greens and just putt from about 4 or 5 feet for could be an hour, could be 2 hours, you know. I wouldn't even bring the wedge with me, and then I'd do another day of bringing just the wedge and just do a bit of chipping, and then gradually just work your way back into it then, you know. And then just hopefully it just clicks into place then by the time the season comes, you know.
What's the best part of your game?
The best part of my game, I'd like to think me putting. I'm very aggressive with me putting. But I think probably me putting. A lot of people say me pitching's good, but I don't put a lot close, but I get a lot of long puts.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly solid within 2-3 feet, like, you know.
Very good. We're going to talk about there was a couple of near misses. There was definitely Larkspur Park when Chris Scannell, you got to the final that year.
That's right, 2010, yeah. In 2009 was my first ever match play actually, and I got to the last 16. I played Jonathan Goodall in a great match.
Yes.
And I was 2 up before I had to go, and he birdied the last 5, and then birdied the first in Castletown.
Yeah.
From off the front of the green, it was a magical game, and he got to the final then against Ray, and I won the Leinster match play a few weeks later, and the Dublin stroke play a few weeks after that. And then 2010, I went down to Larkspur. Never even seen the course, but once you get down to Larkspur, you just say, wow, that weekend, like they'd run-offs off the greens, they'd all the bark around. It was just amazing looking. It was a phenomenal course. It still is.
And it's a spectacular course with the views as well, looking at the Rocket Cache.
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable. And I got off to a flyer down there.
Yeah, very good.
I probably got to look at the draw as well, the way things worked out. Like, obviously, Marty knocked out yourself, and then Kieran Morrissey.
Yeah.
Probably by the time I played Marty, he was probably wrecked,
I know.
And I got through a good game against Noel Stapleton in the second game. I beat him in the last, but then I think I had another inter then Johan Brosnan in the quarter. So
yeah,
you'd probably say I did get a lucky draw, but then I had John Maltz in the semis. And that was just a game I was just purely focused on. I'd heard a few words were said about me. I had no chance, against John, the usual. So, so I just focused, and that was it. Lucky enough, I think the weather in the final just got to me then, and I wasn't properly prepared for the whole weekend. But I wasn't expecting to get so far, Chris was phenomenal.
Yeah, Chris's putting that day was immense. That whole weekend was immense. So the weather was obviously very bad at that stage, but when you like Tipperary, obviously you got to Tipperary Hills then for the match play in Tipperary Hills. That final was also an absolute washout. Can you tell us about that weekend?
Yeah, that was the same thing. I'd never seen Tipperary Hills until the Thursday. I think we went down and we played a couple of rounds, and I wouldn't say I was overly fond of the place at the time on the Thursday. Then the Friday you see the improvement in the course, and then Saturday morning you're just like, Jesus, it was like 2 different courses, It was unbelievable. Yeah. But same thing. I got off to a great start. I played very well against Paul Carey. From Tullamore, I beat him well, but I played really well. Then I sort of struggled in the Sunday morning against Danny Looney. I didn't put as well. I still won sort of comfortably, but then I knew I was coming up against Anthony Culhan. So I knew that the locals there around Tipperary Hills are very, very strong, and I'll be honest, I was very lucky to get through that one. He missed a great chance on 15, and then I think I got 16, and I got in just before him on the last hole with a birdie, and his putt just missed by. So then I had Liam O'Donovan, and that was just the craziest game I've probably ever played in. I think the 2 of us were 14 under for the first round, and we were all square. Yeah. And I think I was 6 under for the next 6 then as well. So it was I sort of pulled away from then. It was
scoring
just,
that weekend
crazy.
was immense, yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then people were all talking about Brian Delaney, who'd beaten Paul O'Brien in front of us, and he was like, he was 24 under for 26 holes or something. And I was like, we're only 2 shots off that or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, so playing the Monday morning against Ryan, I was all confidence of beating him. All I was thinking all week, all day long, was just trying not to give Brian or Ray in the final any holes, and I don't think I had any fours, and I think I might have had 1 against Brian, that was it, but I don't think I had any fours. I don't think you get that many holes, and when you're giving holes to them lads, like, you've no chance,
And it's some achievement for to come down to the Munster courses and take on the cream of the crop, the Liams O'Donovans, the Brian Delaney's, the real, and of course Ray in the final. I remember the final just being so wet and so, and Ray had as much support as I've seen for a long time, and he had, people supporting him a lot. I thought you felt a little bit alone on that day, but that was me maybe.
I'll tell you what, Frank. I got to the Monday of the year. It was in Claycastle, and I was beaten by Owen Walsh in the semi-finals.
Yes.
I didn't play well that day. I think it was around 2012. Would it be around then? Maybe so, 2013.
Yes.
Yeah. I played Owen Walsh, and he beat me 2-1. But I knew that day when I left the course, I was like, I'm after losing an All Ireland championship that day. That was the time I'd ever felt I'd lost an All Ireland.
Yes.
Just didn't perform on the day. I just didn't sleep that night. I sort of just wasn't comfortable. I was on my own, and it completely lost that day. So I felt in Tipperary Hills. Then I actually just there was probably only a handful of people that I knew that were there.
Yes, yeah.
But it was amazing, just a little bit of support you get. It's just, but the brain sort of works out like. I've been in this position before, and now I can sort of use that to my advantage. I know what to do and what not to listen to, really, And I'm lucky enough, like to play Ray in a final and win. Like, it was, that's dreamland stuff, to win your first All Ireland, like.
Yeah, and you came on the scene in 2010 for me, really, in St Anne's in the intercounty there when you shot 12 under for the singles as well. So you were there or thereabouts. You were the feared player from Dublin. I always felt that was the one thing that you had that reputation that but I think then what you did was you gathered players around you in Dublin with regards to like intercounties and stuff. You became a force to be reckoned with then fairly quickly. It's strange how it happens around one or two players when they come along, they can galvanise a team.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the great thing with Dublin was we changed to the trial. It was something we didn't do for a long time, and I think once we done that, the guys, everyone that played, we probably 30 or 40 lads in the trials every year.
Yes. And
we all sort of came together and sort of became a sort of group of friends,
Yeah.
Instead of like rivals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Obviously we're still trying to beat each other, but like you get to know lads more, and everyone gets more comfortable, and everyone plays better together,
Yeah, and
I think
it's a real team event. I'll come back to the intercounty in a minute because I want to talk about last year, but we have to talk then about Royston as well, and the second round in Royston.
Yeah, that was just crazy. It's mad. I remember I'd have put on 17 in the first round, and I was just barely over the bunker on the front of the green, and it was about 10, 12 feet down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only 4 under at the time.
Yeah.
And I'd heard Damien had done 10.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, I rolled that one in, and I was sort of right. So I'd gone through a bit of a drought. I was 4 under after 9. I was going grand. And Derek Horney was standing on the 18 tee box, and he says, "You're going to have to get 18." And he says, "Why?" He said, "What's he have to do?" And he said, "He's done 10 under." So I said, "Right, I'll try and get 18." And I missed it, so I walked off the course. I was disgusted, I didn't. It was such a good start, I didn't kick on. So I was just try and get a couple early and see what happens. But to do what I done, it was off the wall, to be honest with you. And the funny thing is, you walk off a course after shooting a 40, and it's something we all do in pitch and putt. We all think of the putts that we missed. I went out and I walked off and said, "Geez, I missed 2 great chances there. Could have gone 16." You don't think of the ones that you got from 10, 12 feet. You only think of the ones that you missed.
That's something. I'm just going to challenge on that a little bit, right? That was Derek Courtney said the same in his interview too. He said that he only remembered the games that he lost. He only remembered the shots where he didn't do it. God, I don't know. Maybe I'm in a different game or playing a different thing. I rarely remember the ones that I lost. I'm trying to always focus on the ones that I win. It's an interesting dichotomy there that where people can look at it from different angles. But you walked in. I mean, the beauty and the best thing about Royston for me was the fact that there was Damien, yourself, and Brian Delaney were in the final 3 ball. The 3 players that are currently at the top of the game in its own round. How did you feel about stepping onto that first tee box with that group?
that was no bother to me whatsoever. Cause, no, like I played with Brian and I played with Damien before. I played with Damien with yourself down in Deer Park in the last round in the Irish Open.
Yeah.
And then I played with Brian before in the match play, and I think there's the same thing as what you were talking about there with Dublin. I think in sort of the higher sort of level of the game, a lot of the top lads are good friends as well, and it was just very, very comfortable, I think we all got a great start. We all got the first, which is I tell you, the first in Royston is a tough bleeding hole.
It's the toughest first hole in the game, I think, yeah.
Yeah, really is a tough hole. So I just said, look, just don't do anything stupid and don't give shots away, And like I got a great putt and three along one up the hill, and because that green was like glass, and
yeah.
Even putting uphill, you felt like I barely feel like I'm touching the ball here, But we all played really solid, and we came off the course, and someone said, I just heard someone saying, "Geez, Delaney had a 46," and I said, I just shot a 46 with 2 fours as well, you know. So it was a bit. It was just surreal, like, to walk up the 8-inch, you have it. When I was nearly in tears walking up the 8-inch, and to get the putt across the green was just the icing on the cake, There was no one ever. I don't think there was any other person that was ever going to not lag a putt.
Yeah,
that fairly battered the back of the hole, I think.
It did. It was great. It was an amazing finish. That's my cup. Make sure you mind it. I'm after it one of these days again. So.
No problem. Thanks.
Right, I'm going to talk to you about one or two other things as well. You're the Dublin inter-county team, right? And we touched on it a little bit earlier, but they definitely have upped. Well, RGC was something that was a good challenge and it was a great win and kind of broke the duck. But the performance in McDonagh was definitely second to none. It was really, really good, and it showed a level of improvement in the Dublin inter-county team over the last 4 or 5 years. That was. I didn't think he had the players for it, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be smart about that. I didn't think he had them.
No,
yeah. And but the camaraderie, the atmosphere around it. I know Cork were a bit flat and we're out of it in McDonagh, but the way that he came through, all for each other, the twos were flowing, the adrenaline was flowing. It reminded me of Cork in our heyday when we were really buzzing and flying and doing everything that we could right. Is there any specific reason for that? What's that down to?
A lot of hard work, and we practiced. I tell you now, Lily Saturday, well, I tell you, it's only right that you won, because the amount of times we were down in McDonagh practicing and playing was. I'd never done it before, like for an inter-county, the amount of work we went in and put down. Trials there, and myself and Junior, like for years, it was always someone else with Junior, and I said a couple of years ago, so why don't you put me with Junior? I get on well with Junior, and we sort of just clicked. We play well together,
Yeah.
And we went down, and Junior is a brilliant lad to pick up little things in your game, like as he said, like we're all good players, but there's sometimes we're doing things wrong that we don't realise we're doing wrong because we think we're better than what we are. And he picked up something I was doing. It was only one hole. It was the fourth hole, the one back in towards the first, the sort of raise at the front of 60 metres. Yeah. And I kept on trying to punch the ball in, and I wasn't connecting with the ball. And he said, why don't you just hit your normal shot? What are you trying to do? Yeah. And I think every shot I hit that weekend, I birdied us, or I stuck it close. Or it was just little things like that we worked on. And, when you practice, that's the things you should be practicing. You should be learning things like that. And I think that's what a lot of players miss. They just go out and play and don't even think of what they're doing.
So it's the teamwork and the camaraderie.
Yeah, a lot of that.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I think it's Junior Smith, to be honest with you. I think he's a real unifier within that team. I've known Junior for a long time. I really get on well with Junior. I wind him up a bit at times as well, but
sure, we all do that.
But that's okay as well. Now my next question is, I believe you're getting driving lessons because you need to drive the bus.
No, I don't think that will be happening. I can't drive. I can't drive. I can drive on the golf course, but that's about it.
We had a spat a couple of years ago. I won't say a spat. We had a bit of crack a couple of years ago.
We had a bit of crack, yeah. I think other people took it differently, but we were only having a laugh up in Royston. You know?
I think it was a bit of fun, to be honest, because it was
the bus. You know, and that's a good thing. You know, like we all have a bit of harmless fun, especially on social media and all. You know, it's only harmless fun.
Yeah, and
other people might see it differently, you know.
I think in Royston, I said it in the speech as well afterwards. I said it's kind of a level of respect as well, because we know what it's like to walk up the 18th hole having to get a 2 for a championship with your teammates. It is that, but I thought it was great fun, to be honest myself. So maybe not everybody did, you know, but. I don't care, but you know, it's been fun.
So when did you ever care anyway, Frank?
No, I don't really. Talk to me, but you are very present on Facebook. You're ever present on Facebook. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you know, you are very active on social media. It's a part of modern life. It's the way that it is. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a help or a hindrance to you?
No, it doesn't bother me. I think it's just as you said there, it's just a part of life now. See, I used to work, when I was working in my last job, I was on the Facebook was like part of my job, like was to update things and, you know, and then the same at Dublin Pitch and Putt, like trying to update the Facebook pages and stuff. Then I'm on the Locklestown page as well. So you're trying to run 4 or 5 pages, the Dublin Scratch Cup series. So you just find yourself on it anyway and just poking about, you know what I mean? You end up just staying there for a few hours or so. You don't even realise it now with the phone in the hand, you know?
Yeah, but the point about it, the point I'll make is that I look at Facebook and I use Facebook to wind people up, to throw out a few spanners here and there, to have a laugh. I always say anybody who says anything serious on Facebook needs their head examined, right? So, you know, but I think you take it differently. You use Facebook in a very personal way.
Yeah, I suppose it was obviously, I think most people know my problems of what I went through, and like the 2012 and the World Cup in Royal Mead, that was actually one, it should have been the highlight. It was probably one of the lowlights of my pitch and putt life because of where I was at the time mentally, you know, and I think from being in Pieta House and stuff like that, I sort of garnered a bit of confidence out of it and realised, right, maybe this is something I should actually do, is probably write a few things and post them out and let people know, you know, a few years later, like, you know.
But if the purpose,
a lot of people go through that stuff and they don't have the confidence to do things like that, you know.
And they don't, but it is stuff that you're talking about, JR, is very personal. It is very personal. I don't know what I. Oh, it is. But yeah. You know, I mean, I don't post personal stuff, really personal stuff, on social media stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard to.
Oh no, yeah.
And do you feel that sometimes there's people will look at it and say, what's the purpose of it? And I'm going to ask you, what is the purpose of it? What do you think the purpose of doing that is?
Just to help some people out that might be struggling, you know, like I suppose, as you probably sort of said earlier, I'm someone that a lot of people might look up to, you know, in pitch and putt.
Yeah.
And I suppose if someone like me is posting stuff like that and saying, geez, maybe he is, like, if he's in trouble, like anyone can be in trouble, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I don't know if that sounds stupid or anything, but like that's the way I sort of feel. And like I've been told by a couple of players, you know, maybe you shouldn't post stuff like that up, you know. Mm-hmm. Maybe you should keep it a bit more private. But look, if it helps one person, that's done its job, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know this. And that's very altruistic from you as well, and it can be seen as a very positive if we can help people. and that's got to be it. I know that you are a keen supporter of Darkness into Light and the Pieta House, and all of the issues that are there as well, and that's only positive in fairness, and we have to take our hat off to you about that. No, I wanted to cover that, JR, because it is important, and it's important that people hear that your reasons for it as well, and good and bad. I mean, I don't know, is it such a good thing to do, to be so open as that?
Oh, I know. I completely understand that as well. I've learned over the years that a lot of people don't, that they just brush it off and say, sure, look, he's at it again, this sort of stuff. And,
but it's so personal, and it's so personal, so deep to people that maybe it stirs up. Maybe it stirs up moments in their own life that they're not comfortable with, and not everybody's as comfortable with their own feelings or things, and that's a huge problem in our society. It's just it's an interesting point, and I, don't underestimate the good and bad that it can do. And I don't mean bad in the bad.
Of course,
there's things that are there. Okay, we're going to talk about one or two other things as well. Right.
No problem.
Why do no Dublin teams enter the Interclub Championships?
I tell you, we're struggling even in the Dublin leagues to get teams. I don't know what it is. I know the first year we done it ourselves in Loughnatown and All County sort of merged. We ended up getting to the final. Used beat us down in Bruff, and we great days and that and all. And as much as we'd love to do it, I think there's a bit of a spark on it in a lot of players that to travel and stuff like that, and they just don't want to do it anymore. And I think they've just sort of outgrown stuff like that. Look, it's a fantastic competition. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to play it. I just don't think we have the players that.
But you can get together a club team to play in the Dublin leagues, though. It's just that I look at it and I say there's 0 Dublin clubs entered into what for me is the best club competition in the game. It really is good, and
it should be the best competition. Yeah, you're right. 100% agree with you.
And I think it's one of the things that's lacking. That, I mean, Dublin Pitch and Putt for a couple of years struggled at the intercounty level, and then all of a sudden you got the team spirit, you got the level together, and you came through. But I just think that there's so much to be garnered from a team event. From a team event side of things as well, that maybe Dublin Pitch and Putt, maybe that's something you can work on in your days to come, So I promised myself I would challenge you on a couple of things, and that's one of the things that I wanted to challenge you on.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. 2 last questions to finish up with. The first one is, who is your iconic player? What player from your youth, from when you were growing up, influenced you on a personal basis? And the second part of that question is, and who is the greatest player, the technically gifted, whatever way you want to go with it, who's the best player you've ever seen? So which one, you can answer the 2 of those then.
Growing up, to me, there's 2 people in Loughnatown Pitch and Putt who sort of kept me going. I'll tell you, there's a guy called Pat Kelly. He would have played. He was our first sort of player that played for Dublin. He won the intercounties in '82 in Clog. He works on the course every day now, and he was always the one. Like anytime you struggle with your game, you'd go to him, And he still is an icon up in Loughnatown, and he's well respected around Leinster. Anyway, I'm not sure if many of you in Munster would know him now, but he was always the one I looked up to. As a juvenile, then I sort of got a bit older, and I got good friends with Hubert Kelly. Hubert was third in the stroke play for Moy, I think, in 1999. He played for Ireland against Catalonia in IGB. He was a top player. He won the interstroke play as well in '91, I think. And he was a really top player, and he was one that everyone in Loughnatown wanted to be like, And I was probably the last of the seniors to win a title before I sort of kicked on, But I'd say they were the two. Pat and Hubert Kelly were definitely two that I looked up to as a youngster. Derek Courtney, of course, was another, like, you always looked up to. I remember seeing him years ago. We played my first ever Scratch Cup down in Mellows in the early 2000s. I think it was 2003. That was the first ever Scratch Cup I played in, because my mum lives around the corner. So he was one I always looked up to. But I don't think anyone can sort of disagree with Ray as the number one. Look, his record is just unbelievable, and I don't see how anyone could pick anyone other than Ray as the number one.
Your last question. So is you've got a moment to pick in your career. What's your moment? What's your most memorable, your favourite, your best moment?
I'd say the Putt 18 and Royston has to be in the last round. Just to have so many people there, friends, and it was amazing. The World Cup in 2012 comes close, but as I said, I was going through a lot at the time. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I should have. I had a lot of family and all turned up on the day and stuff like that. But I'd say the Putt and Royston on the 18th and last year was just out of this world,
Excellent, JR. Like I say, that's my cup. Be careful with it. I just want to thank you so much for joining me and making this show with me. You're, like I said, an icon in the game. People look up to you and hopefully learn from you and hopefully use you as an inspiration. And I just want you to know that in these sad times that, we all hope that we can get back on the course very quickly and very soon. And I look forward to seeing you later on in the year or next year, and we'll have a good game together. And be careful with that bus because it's a bit wrecked, and Cork bus is much better.
Thanks very much, Frank. Thanks for having us on. And I tell you, thank you for all this as well. The banter page and the radio pitch and putt. It's been, I think it was 2009. I think the last time I was on this. So
yeah,
it's great to see it back. And it's a great little thing. So. Hopefully you keep going as long as you can, And thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Bye now. Good night.